Barbarella is a raunchy sci-fi comedy starring Jane Fonda. It's super campy and expects the viewer not to take things too seriously. The results leave us somewhat divided, but if nothing else, it's a pretty good movie to show off just how colourful your TV can get. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together about a sci-fi movie, and in this episode we are reviewing a winner of a Patreon vote. There was 3 60s movies up for vote for our patrons, and they voted for Barbarella, so that is what we're looking at today. We don't venture back to the 60s too often on the show. I mean, one, just because there's a lot more sci-fi movies after that, but you know, every once in a while it's good to go back to a slightly cheesier era and check some stuff out. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, I think you really just kind of summed up everything there with cheesier. That's kind of everything you need to know.
Yeah, so we'll start spoiler free. As we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to spoilers, and of course if you are enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button, and of course you can get bonus content and, you know, various other goodies and help support it and keep it coming by going to Patreon or becoming a YouTube member, but I'll tell you about that at the end of the show. So Barbarella is set in the 41st century, and it is it's a space opera of sorts. Jane Fonda plays the title character of Barbarella, who is sent on a mission, and the genre of this is sci-fi comedy, light erotica, I guess we'll call
it. Yeah. I mean, I more modern has taken it in a different direction, but like I would say that this is a pretty clear-cut definition of a sex comedy.
Yeah, I feel like though this leans more towards, like, imagine a sci-fi porno just without the sex scenes.
That's just a sci-fi, Pete. That's what it is.
No. You know what I mean? Like the quality of the storytelling, the way that it just sort of like leans into sex, but then doesn't actually, you know, give us the goods, as it were. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe that's a little bit reductive, but it's definitely a cheesier, pulpier movie. And it's not trying to be high art. It's not trying to be, you know, various other things. But, you know, its biggest sin might just be that the story is actually really dull and repetitive. And, you know, well, I mean, we're getting into opinions here. So, David, what did you think of Barbarella?
It's weird because I went into it knowing the comedy tag. Like, I went in knowing that it was supposed to be a comedy. And I felt like for the first, probably about an hour of this movie, I was getting that it was weird. I was getting that it was, you know, a bit silly in places, but I wasn't quite getting the comedy aspect of it. And then about an hour in, there's one scene that just is so absolutely straight up, undeniably a comedy. And I think everything after that point really started working for me. Like, all the comedic bits really started landing a bit more. I don't know, maybe it just pushed me over the edge into insanity, where finally I was like on its level. But no, I do think that it's a fun enough movie. It's very cheesy, very silly. It kind of struck me a lot of in that same sort of vein as Flash Gordon, where it's trying to harken back towards like a more cheesy time probably than even itself was at that moment. But no, I think it was fairly self-aware as to what it was doing, and I can't fault it for that. The only problem I really have is that, like I said, from a comedy aspect, that first hour just really wasn't landing for me, and I think that it probably could have used a bit more clear cut of, no, we are aware that we're not taking this seriously, and just do some more straight up jokes at the beginning to make me sort of fall in line with it, because I really wasn't sure up until a certain point whether or not they were self-aware.
I mean, I don't think there was ever any hint that they were trying to take things seriously. I think it's clear at the very start they're not taking it seriously, but I agree, like, that I wasn't really finding much of it all that funny. if I'm honest. And I do think it's more overtly a comedy with more straightforward jokes in the back, like half hour, I also don't think I found much of it all that funny either. Like, the best thing I can really say about it is that Jane Fonda is like, she kind of holds her own and kind of is like a star. She is at the center of it, and it feels like she is carrying the entire movie on her shoulders. But like, the character itself is kind of a blank slate because of the nature of what the plot's supposed to be, and the fact that she's not really meant to understand all these places she's going to and all these customs. And all of her character basically boils down to is these alien men all want to have sex, and even though sex is kind of like a long distant thing in the past, a la Demolition Man, when she does have sex, she seems to quite like it and is kind of into it and wants more of it. And that's kind of the underlying thing. And then the actual plot that's going on is so thin in terms of how it's like actually built up and developed that it doesn't really matter. Like, there's no stakes to anything ever that's happening, which would be fine if it was constantly doing jokes and making me laugh, because it'd just be like a comedy.
Right.
But I don't think that I ever really felt like I was laughing all that much. I was mostly just kind of like, oh, this set's kind of cheesy and colorful, but then the scene would keep going for another 10 minutes and I'd just be bored for the rest of the scene. Like, I would enjoy new locations whenever we went there, but that was about it.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of, we just finished up Naked Gun season over on Collector's Cut, and it feels like that was something that we talked about pretty frequently, was the story doesn't have to be good as long as the jokes keep coming, as long as you can keep up the jokes there. It has to have one or the other, especially in a comedy. And I agree, I think that this one, for the most part, it just wasn't working. It was, like you said, it's a very thin story, and it was very light on jokes. But I don't know. It's strange because there is this absurdism to it. There is this, like, it just goes so weird so quickly and so frequently that, like, at a certain point, I do see a comedic aspect in that. I do recognize that the silliness of it is within itself funny, but it's not really ha-ha funny. It's more of a, oh, well, that's just kind of dumb sort of funny. I don't know how best to explain it up until it hits to the more third act where it's just actually doing jokes.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth mentioning I didn't like Flash Gordon that much either. Like, I get that it's meant to be cheesy and silly, and like, I kind of get the campiness of like what it's going for, but it just doesn't work for, like, I just don't find myself getting into it. So like, I don't know, maybe I don't even know how you think. I honestly, I don't really know if the tone they're going for was ever really going to work for me. Like, it may just be something that I was never going to click with, and that's fair. You know, I like, again, maybe if it was like a Naked Gun where there's just jokes like, you know, constantly that are cracking me up, then yeah, maybe it would work. But as it is, it's just kind of, I don't know. Yeah. I found myself very disinterested in a lot of what was going on. For like, you know, there's the odd little bit here or there. Like, maybe the biggest laugh I got in the first hour is like really near the start, where the opening of the movie is Barbarella as the titles are playing. Well, actually, the titles aren't even playing for most of it. The titles start coming out of her spacesuit when she gets to certain bits of it coming off, but she's just floating in her spaceship in a spacesuit, and she's like, you know, removes a glove, and we see like the sexy hand, and then she removes like a whole leg of the spacesuit, and there's a leg, and she's naked under there, right? So she ends up floating naked, but as she's taking off certain parts of the spacesuit, letters of her name and then the movie title start coming out, like sort of like comically floating out of the spacesuit, and she's there naked, and the movie starts with the president of Earth getting on a Skype call with her, and she's standing there naked, which she doesn't seem to mind or care. But when the call starts, he's like, oh, Barbarella, this is greatly important. And she's like, hey, just give me a minute, I'll go throw something on. And he goes, no need for that. This is a matter of like national, you know, intel. And I was like, oh yeah, of course you don't want her to put on clothes, you dirty old man. Like, that is the biggest laugh I got, was him saying, no time for that. You stay naked.
In fairness, based off of their culture, I don't think he actually cared. I think he's just like, yeah, whatever, it's no big deal. In our culture, nudity is not a thing. But like, we learned that
later, sure. But like, yeah, I like in the moment, it made me laugh because I'm like, of course he doesn't want her to put on clothes.
No, I was 100% MST3King this whole movie. Like every time there was something like that where it's like, oh yeah, don't worry about putting on clothes.
Yeah, I think for me though, like once it got into like the repetitious nature of like she crash lands somewhere, she encounters someone, and that person says, "Hey, you can repay me for my help with sex." I'm like, oh, this is just porn plot. This is straight up like porn plot.
I don't know. I appreciate it because of the way it played out, because it never plays any two scenes like that the same. It plays each of them a very different way, and I like the comedy that comes out of that. They even hit a rule of three things where on the third one, they like she thinks she understands like what's about to happen here finally, and then all of a sudden the guy throws it for a loop and say like, oh no, that's not what I want at all. And it's like, I don't know, I got a laugh out of that. I think that the way that they did the porn plot here actually was comedic at times.
I was just bored. I was painfully. By the time I got to that point in the movie, I was just painfully bored of the whole thing. I was waiting for it to end. I don't want to very little out of this.
I don't want to spoil what my homework movie was, but my homework, I tried to get something in the same sort of like era and like feel sort of thing, and that one I was very bored by. And I did that one first. So I feel like this one, by comparison, I just was getting a lot more out of. It was a lot more entertaining at the very least, because I appreciate the self-awareness, I guess. The other one felt like it was so like dreadfully they were just doing it as it was like what it was supposed to be. This one, it was self-aware in that it was bad, and it kind of at certain points took advantage of how cheap it was and made it work for a comedic bit on top of it at the same time.
Yeah. I got nothing to I got nothing to add, because I just don't think it's very funny. I thought it was pretty boring, and like if you like Jane Fonda, like there's some skimpiness and like you get something out of that, but like that's about it. That's the levels of depth here that we're working with.
That's fair. I understand why you don't like it. Let me be clear. I do get it. Like I was very worried for, I would say, about like 10-15 minutes at the beginning. Basically for the period up until we touch down on the first planet that we go to here. It's pretty boring. It doesn't have a lot really going for it, and I was a little bit worried at that point. But I think after that, there's a little bit of a pickup. There's a little bit in the absurdity to it, and by the time you hit the third act, where it actually is doing genuine jokes and comedic bits, I honestly found myself enjoying it. And I get why you don't like it. I see it's not for everybody, but I just found something intriguing at the very least out of it.
Fair enough. That's all I can really say. I mean, honestly, the most interesting thing to me, like I said, was new locations. Like her ship being covered in shag carpet all over it's not just the floor, the walls, the ceiling. It's like she's inside a dog. And I realize that the inside of a dog's not got fur, but that's what it feels like. It feels like the outside of a dog has surrounded her.
So like one of the bits that I found funny in this is that, you know, they've essentially desexualized this character, in that there's I say that in the term of she has no real concept for like what sexuality is. She's just kind of doing whatever. But as such, almost every single costume she wears in this movie has like clear / semi-transparent bits for the breasts. And it's like, I don't know. I just found that funny how no matter where she goes, no matter how many costume changes she makes, every single one of them has that built in. Like that's just a tongue-in-cheek thing for the audience for sure.
Yeah, like I guess. I don't know. I got nothing out of this.
I realize now that this review is basically going to be like saying like, oh, and then there's this bit where this happens, and I got to chuckle out of that. You're just going to go, yeah. So anyway,
I felt nothing from that. I felt so very little from this. The music did nothing for me. Like I say, the cheesy set design occasionally was vaguely interesting for like the start of a scene, and then it would go on for however long. The plot progression wasn't particularly exciting. No, No, I got nothing out of this. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sadly, I feel like I don't even have anything that interesting to say about it, if I'm honest. Like, it's not even like I'm coming in here with like a hot take and I'm like, oh, this is stupid for this reason or that reason. I just think that it's like devoid of any. I don't know. There's nothing to the story. There's nothing to like really care about. It's so thin. And because I don't really think it's that funny, I don't think it's mostly that particularly sexy either. So, what am I left with?
No, that's fair. Yeah, I will say that this is not a movie that has, I think, anything that can be said about it critically. Like, and I'm not saying being like critical on it. I'm saying like there is nothing to say in terms of like, oh, I really like what the director did here with the cinematography, or oh wow, the sound design was. By the way, the sound design in this is off the wall. Like, they just got their hands on a sound effects pack and they were going nuts.
Yeah, except it's 1968, so like their sound effects pack is like reels of like tape they bought off some sound library. It's actually kind of wild to me this is a Paramount release. This was a mainstream studio who put this out. Like, it feels a bit skeevier than that, but you know.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, it is strangely enough based off of a comic book. I don't know how widespread the comic series was. It says that it's a French comic series, but it may have just been an IP that they owned, and they're like, yeah, you know, we've got Jane Fonda on contract. Let's do something with her.
Of course it was the French.
Who else would be that sexually open?
Yeah. Be that sexually opening, but yet aggressively unsexy at the same time. Yeah, that's the French right there for you. That's... but as far as anything else goes, like I was sitting thinking about halfway through this. I was watching this, and the thought that popped into my head was, this is the same year as 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is, I can't fathom the thought of like, I mean, I don't know which one came earlier in the year, but the idea of seeing 2001: A Space Odyssey and having my mind blown and like captivated and like just a stunning filmmaking that holds up decades and decades later. And then walking to Barbarella and just being like, "Oh, there's Jane Fonda's tits," like that's the chasm that we're dealing with here. And I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I know this movie's not trying to be thought provoking. It's not trying to be that, so it's unfair in some respects. But I just can't help but feel like this is just not offering me anything as a science fiction film, and that's just how it is.
No, I get what you're... As a science fiction film, I agree. I think first and foremost, this is a sex comedy. And then the science fiction, like you said, it's kind of a porn plot thing where it doesn't really matter where we're at. It doesn't really matter what's going on. The idea of it is we're just going to put them in compromising situations and then continue down that path. And I will say, as much as you say the plot is very lightweight and simple, and it is self-consistent. It is like every scene that they go into is furthering this idea and like how this world goes until we do hit something that technically counts as a third act, like actual climax.
But it's repetitive, and also it kind of shortchanges the main character because she constantly gets knocked down or knocked out, sometimes by really weird things, and she's in these predicaments, and like I don't know, maybe like having her be a little proactive would make her feel like as stronger as a character, someone that I could root for in some way.
I get you, but I don't think that's the intent. Like I leafed through the original comic real quick. I didn't actually read any of it, but I just looked to see like, okay, am I noticing anything similar here? And it seemed like that was like a recurring thing where she would just wake up in a place and she's like, oh, okay, I guess we're just doing this now.
Fine, that's accurate to the comic, but then the comic shit too. Well, what do you want from me?
I can't argue that. I don't know.
Give me a compelling character who, despite the sexualized nature, is like making decisions that are going to get results, who is like actively choosing to solve problems. And she like stumbles her way through this whole movie, never actually makes a decision that leads to success. It's always happenstance. It's always someone else, or it's always just the way things are. She never actually accomplishes anything in this movie. So it's hard to really get behind and care about what she's trying to do.
Okay, fair. Yeah. Look, here's the thing. I can't remember what movie this was, but we've had this exact same scenario, this exact same problem before, where I'm not actually that passionate about the movie, but I sound like I am because you are absolutely not for it whatsoever. And I have to just like give my small defenses where I can. I'm not going to argue against any of the points you're saying because they are legitimate, but like I just got a little bit more out of this than you did.
I mean, the charm either works for you or doesn't, but it's got nothing else to offer, so.
Yeah, that's fair. I would agree.
All right, spoilers, everyone. Spoilers for Barbarella.
Sure.
Not that
there's only one thing. One thing I want to say. One thing I want to say before the spoilers, though, is there is a character in this movie who's kind of I don't think it's a spoiler, but maybe who is alluded to be the main villain of the movie, and his name is Dr. Durant. Every single time they say this character's name, I just have Hungry Like the Wolf playing in my head every single time.
I assume that's a Duran Duran song, just based on the context.
It is a Duran Duran song, yes. Correct.
I mean, I know some Duran Duran songs, I just don't know that one.
All right, fair enough.
I thought of the band too. I mean, Duran Duran did not exist in 1968, so obviously they did not intentionally have something that sounded like a band's name, but yes, it was hard to ignore. That said, though, anyone under a certain age is going to have no idea who they are and would not have that problem. But, I mean, hell, they're before my time as well. I only know who Duran Duran are because my dad liked them when I was a kid.
I guess that I just like more of that 80s pop music because I know a bunch of their songs. I love them. They're a great band. But no, apparently they did take the name from the Barbarella movie because originally the band's name was Dr. Duran Duran, and then they shortened it down once they started hitting some success.
Oh. So they have bad taste. Got it.
Oh, Pete, this is going to be either a long one or a short one, and I'm not sure
it's going to be short. I'm hungry, and I want this over with. We're getting out of here quick today, everyone.
Oh, so that's it. You're just hangry. Have a Snickers.
I can't eat on the show. That's unprofessional. So, yeah, movie starts with her floating, taking off her outfit. The titles kind of obscure some of the detail a little bit to try and have some, I don't know, level of like decency. I think so. We already mentioned her talk with the president, dude. But obviously she gets her mission, which is some scientist named Duran Duran has built a weapon, and she's like, "But who would build a weapon? We have been pacifists and in a utopia for centuries by this point." But he's went to a star system that's like, we don't know what the people are like there. They might be more primitive, and she's going to go there to try and find this guy because they're worried that Duran Duran's weapon will lead to like wars and things like that coming back. And she's shocked and appalled at that, so that's her mission. Okay, plot set up. Her outfit, once she gets dressed, I actually, not that it probably really matters in the grand scheme of things, but I actually did not know if the see-through part of her top was actually see-through to like her real body, or if they just had like a fake rubber bit inside the I'll call it the glass for the lack of a better term. Not that it really matters in the grand scheme of things. Like, I feel like it probably makes her feel better on set that she's like not actually exposed, around a bunch of people, I'd assume. But ultimately it looks like it's see-through, so it still looks kind of raunchy. So I don't know.
Yeah, I could see it go either way. Obviously she's okay with topless
David
scenes
is
in this,
clearly looking at it right now. He's looking over to his other screen, examining this closely.
All right, hold on. Let me hands up then, just so there's nothing untoward going on. No, I always watch the movie as we're discussing it, but yeah, I can't tell as well. I would think that for the sake of how cheap it is in general, I doubt they would do a rubber bust just for the sake of it. I think it's probably transparent to her actual body, but I could see it go either way.
Yeah. And this is how interesting this movie is I'm discussing this. Because what else
Costume design is very important, Peter.
Yes. So she has like a malfunction. I don't remember what she said was happening. There's a malfunction and she crash lands on a planet.
She goes into hypersleep, and it takes like a week or two for her to get to wherever she's going.
By the way, her hypersleep, she takes a pill for it, and then she just lies. There's a little like, cutout in the shag carpet where there's just like a plastic clear rectangle that she lies on. There's no like pod or any sort of like lid that comes on top of her.
What do you think this is? The 31st century? Pete, we're in the 41st century. All we need is a pill and a piece of cellophane.
All right, continue.
Yeah, anyway, there's some sort of, I think they said, magnetic hurricane or something like that. It's absolutely just, oh no, we need her ship out of working so she can't immediately leave the planet. And so she crash lands in the middle of some ice fields, this is the part where, like, I wasn't sure how serious the movie was taking itself, because the set itself, the actual soundstage they're on, has, like, a bunch of dry ice, and, like, it actually has, like, a bunch of stuff that makes it seem moody. But it is so obviously a soundstage that, like, I'm trying to figure out whether or not they were trying to lean into that or trying to hide it. And I couldn't get a read on it at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
All right, good talk. Moving on.
Look, like I said, movie's repetitive. She lands or crashes on a planet. And obviously the events are a little different each time as to why she gets kidnapped or knocked out or needs help. Actually, like, her ship gets damaged multiple times in this movie. And, like, someone can just fix it, even though it's, like, it's an Earthship. And, like, these people are on a different planet who have never been to Earth or heard of Earth, or... Well, they've heard of it because of one person, the Durant guy's already been here, but, like, other than that, like, they're so far removed from Earth, I'm like, oh, but our ships work the exact same way, apparently, so that's good.
I was 100% convinced, after they said the magnetic storm thing, that we were going to get some weird Planet of the Apes stuff here. I was 100% convinced of that up until, like, the third act, and then I was like, oh, okay, never mind, guess this is actually an alien planet.
Yeah, well, because we're in multiple planets on this because she leaves this planet and then, like, crashes on the planet where the city is she needs to go to. She actually leaves this planet and crashes on another one. But while she's here, she gets knocked out and kidnapped by two little girls who are twins, who take her to...
Who have a sled with a stingray leading it for whatever reason.
Well, a stingray-looking alien who slides on ice. And
yes, just like there are looking aliens of rabbits, but they're dark blue.
And because it's the 60s, I assume they just took a can of blue spray paint to some rabbits.
Oh, yeah. You know, I'm gonna go to the end of the movie right now and look for that "no animals were harmed" message, because I doubt I'm gonna find it.
Not a chance. They hurt some bunnies in the process of making this. I'm guaranteeing it. So they get her on this sled. She wakes up and she's like, "But I've not skied in a long time." And then they take her to another ship, which is Duran's crash ship that's in this ice field, and they go in and they have all these little, like, dolls or puppets that start moving on their own and start biting Barbarella, and it looks like these kids are all laughing and they're just expecting to watch her die. But a guy in a fur coat or a fur, like, suit shows up, scares the kids off, and it turns out when he explains who he is, that he is a catcher. On this planet, this ice planet, children don't live with the rest of civilization. They're banished to these ice fields in the wilderness until they're of a useful age. And then he comes and kidnaps them so they can be civilized and, like, trained to do some jobs or whatever. And it's like, okay, it's not important. This never comes up again later. It does not matter that this is a thing that's happening here. The main crux of this, and to be honest, this entire first planet could be skipped. She could have just crash landed on the planet she needed to go to, and we could have skipped all of this. There's nothing important that happens here, other than the fact that she learned she likes sex.
Thing. Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
That's the only thing that happens.
that's the big thing, is that they because the guy comes in and says, yeah, hey, I think I can help you out or do whatever. They go into his little airship thing, and by airship I mean it's literally just powered by a fan and skis around on the ice. He says, hey, all I want in return is that I want to be able to make love. And she's like, okay, cool. And she goes on this little thing saying, like, oh, I've got some pills because in our culture, making love means that you hold out your hands to each other and you take this pill, which allows you to psionically link, blah, blah, blah. it's just a thing to say that she's never actually had real sex because it was found to be distracting and savage and whatnot. But the guy's like, do it anyway, and she's like, all right. And then turns out she really, really enjoys it.
Yeah. He takes off his first thing to reveal like a really ridiculous fake chest hair wig. So he's actually really hairy anyway.
For it. I like that. Yeah.
And he just sort of like goes forward and, you know, cuts away. And we see from the outside that the ice skiing airship thing is just going in a circle. Right? Because he's basically saying, hey, I can fix your ship, so we'll go back to it. But he's making the trip last longer so they can have sex. And when it cuts into the ship afterwards, she's lying there, just kind of like covered in some of his fur, singing to herself. And this is actually the movie's cue for later on as well, that whenever she's singing like this, it means she just had an orgasm. She just got, and she's in a good mood.
Yep.
So she's, and even like when she gets out the ship and he's like, you know, fixed, like he basically flips a switch and her ship's fixed. When she gets out, she's like got some of his fur on because her clothes got ripped. And she's like, oh, I suppose that was okay. And she's like rubbing against the ship. She's basically ready to start grinding an anything that moves. Like she is intoxicated with the sex.
Yeah. I mean, she did point out, she's like, look, the reason we moved past it was because it was found to be distracting. And yeah, it's distracting.
So she says goodbye, gets up on the ship. The ship crashes on the next planet, which is the planet she's meant to be on. But she crashes in kind of the poor, like, wilderness area next. What's the labyrinth they call it? Where she damages the ship a bit more this time. She falls out, and a blind angel finds her, right? Which is a man in a nappy, or a diaper for the Americans, who's otherwise naked, but he has big white angel wings, but he's blind. So, I guess the flip here is that he's not actually trying to be pervy. He does feel her a little bit when she's lying down to sort of see where she is and sort of feel who she is because he's blind. But the kind of the joke here, I guess, if you want to call it that, is that she's the one who wants to have sex, and she's like kind of like touching him every so often. You know, and after he's taken her to the local civilization, which is all the good people who are banished from the city because the city's full of evil people. It's an evil society. He takes her to his nest, and she's like, oh. And it just cuts to, like, afterwards where she's in the nest covered by, like, the twigs, just singing to imply that she got her way. She like, I want to thank you, Angel Man, for saving me.
Well, it's also that we get a character named Professor Ping, who is the one who is like, oh, I'll fix up your ship. You just don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And when they talk about the Angel Man, whose name is Pygar, by the way,
of course
when they talk about Pygar, it's him basically saying, like, he says he can't fly, that he's unable to do so because he has like a weak muscle something or another. But Professor Ping's just like, yeah, no, he can fly. He has all the ability to fly. He's just lost the willpower.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, I know how to give willpower.
She bangs him so good that he recovers the will to fly.
Yep.
Continue.
I see nothing wrong with this plot point, Pete. That's genius writing. That's top tier writing. So I do like the point where she's like, hey, now that you can fly me over to that evil city because that's where I need to go to find Dr. Durant. And it's at this point she's been given a couple breadcrumbs that like she needs to talk to the evil tyrant who's in there and blah blah blah. But she's basically like, you can fly me there, and he's like, but I cannot see still. I don't have the ability to see. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll be your eyes for you. And at this point, I think they get jumped by some of the tyrant's guards.
Yeah, which are just
basically just armor.
Yeah, and there's nothing inside them. Also, like, some of the poor people out here are like slowly fading away. There's like a guy walking around where like his body's like invisible, and it's just his head, and there's just like sort of rags of clothes, but you can see through his chest. So
yeah,
they do that. That's the whole thing. But yeah, that's the plan. Fly me to the city, Pygar, and he agrees to do so. And we get a very long shot of them against. It's not even like a green screen. It's like a rear projected like series of B-roll behind them. That obviously looks really bad, but you know, charming in its own way. But they fly up to this city that's at the center of this planet. Yeah.
Can I just say, I love there's a bit in here where they start getting shot at because, of course, evil city and this angel's about to fly in. There's the theming there somehow. And they specifically, as they're flying through, Barbarella is telling them, like, okay, go left, go right, do this, do that. And then at one point, she just says, go, hide behind that mountain. And he does it. And I'm like, did they just forget he was blind for a second there? He doesn't know where the hell the mountain is.
Yeah. She also, like, she was given some guns at the start, because weapons are kind of like an ancient thing. So much like Demolition Man, again, to compare it to that, the president sends her some. He can beam some to her from a museum. Here's some weapons, so it's some like laser guns and stuff. So as he's flying her around, she's like taking shots at the alien guard ships that are trying to shoot them down. It's riveting.
I think she has a battery on her ankle or something that ends up dying because she has to use her gun too much. So her gun's actually useless at this point. But I love there's a very extended shot of her putting the spent gun into the diaper of this angel man and saying like, oh, excuse me, I just got to put this right down deep in there. And then they cut away like nothing happened.
We're like halfway through the movie at this point already, by the way.
Yeah, no, this is 45 minutes in. This is I agree with you. The first half is very slow and who cares, and like not a lot really happens there.
Well, there's a potential girl on girl in a minute, so that's where things really start to heat up. Because when they land on the planet, immediately all the cretins, all these evil people who live in this city are all staring at them and want to come and get her. A couple of guys like grab her and just take her somewhere, and it's implied that they're going to do, they're going to assault her. And out of nowhere, this chick with an eye patch who spins these two blades like Raphael with his sai is like spinning these blades, and she like sort of stabs these two guys, and she's like, oh, aren't you a thing pretty, and starts like getting all seductive with her. And Barbarella's just like, my name's not pretty, I'm Barbarella. And she just like doesn't get the advice. I guess she's just not thinking about, oh, a woman would want to have sex with me too. I never even considered that.
Right.
But the angel Pygar has been taken though, and she's looking for him. They do meet up again quite quickly, right? When she finds them being taunted. But they escape into this area that all the bad people won't follow them because it's like a weird chamber where. So this is where we get a big bit of lore from the planet. Is that this city is built on basically a lake, but the water, or I should say the liquid in this lake, is actually energy in liquid form that feeds off of evil and in return provides power, which is why this city works, is because they're all evil, and in this water or liquid gives them energy.
Yes. I frankly, it's a MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter at all because it's just kind of used as this general threat of if you don't take care, or the evil tyrant is able to weaponize the mathos, which is what it is, and it's able to kill whoever she chooses, or if it just wants to kill, it'll do it anyway. So it's kind of just used as this vague MacGuffin. And also visually, there's, like you said, it's a liquid. They just use some, I'm just going to call it 60s psychedelic B-roll, because that's pretty much all it is to like show what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's fine for what it is. I did want to call out one line, though, that I got an actual chuckle out of in this section, which was few and far between, but it was as she was going to try to find Pygar after they got separated. She hears yelling and screaming, and she says, "What's that screaming?" And then pauses and practically looks like dead at the camera and says, "A good many dramatic situations begin with screaming." And I'm like, it just crossed that line of absurdism in my head where I'm like, okay, it's genuinely funny at this point with how crazy it's gotten.
I disagree.
All right. I can see that one coming.
I mean, I noticed the line, but I didn't, I think it was too little too late, where I'm like, movie, we're like 45, 50, 55 minutes in at this point. Like, you've waited too long to grab me. Like, I'm just, it's a lost cause at this point, I think. But,
yeah, I getcha.
Yeah, they get separated more permanently here, though, where we get introduced to this character who's like the concierge to the great, tyrant. And this character actually turns out to be Durant later on. He turns out to be kind of the main villain of the movie, but for now he's serving the ruler of the city, and basically takes Barbarella. I think he takes her to go see her first, because we get the big reveal that the eye patch lady that was hitting on her is actually the Great Tyrant, and sometimes likes to pretend she's one of the regulars to sort of see how they're doing. But she's not got an eye patch now. She's got a fancy dress on, but she's still calling her pretty, and and it's so into her that this is maybe a couple of scenes later. But there's a scene where she's got Pygar, right, and she's got him like tied down, and she's like lying on top of him, and she's like, "Make love to me like you make love to Barbarella," and he's like, "An angel does not make love. An angel is love," and it's just weird. It's like, okay, she wants to have sex with Pygar, but she specifically wants to like talk about how he had sex with Barbarella. So it still feels like it's about Barbarella rather than him.
Yeah, no, it's everything revolves around Barbarella here. Everything's revolving around people wanting to sleep with her, and so even when it's about other people sleeping together, it's still about Barbarella. And I particularly like that bit because when he says like, "Oh, an angel is love," I think she responds with like, "All right, get this fruitcake out of here." Like she's like, "Nah, I don't like this. He's not gonna do what I want him to do."
Yeah, and then the movie takes a bit of a pivot when she's put in like a bird cage with a lot of little birds who are going to peck her to death. Right?
You're right, because they literally say like, "Okay, Barbarella, you're being sentenced to death. We're putting you in the bird cage," but like it is literally a glass box full of parakeets. Not like, oh no, they've made some sort of puppetry of like some horrific looking bird that's going to attack her. No, it's parakeets. And she starts getting pecked. Like they pretend she's being pecked to death. They just show blood on her and her clothes getting ripped. But like all the birds are just flying around and just like resting peacefully on her body. Like they aren't actually doing anything.
Yeah, but they put a lot of little bits of blood and makeup to make it look like they're, been pecking her to death. But a trapdoor opens and she slides down a big tube, and that takes her down to the headquarters of the Resistance. There's a Resistance trying to overthrow the Great Tyrant.
This is where the movie genuinely started working for me. This is the like I think they actually started doing good jokes here, and it actually started landing.
I mean, I would debate good. I mean, I agree that this is the first scene in the movie where I felt like, oh, they're doing just straight jokes, because there's like a running gag here where every single time this guy, the leader of the Resistance, tries to like say, "Hey, we've got this device that does this," and he flips a switch, nothing happens. Like they do it like 3 times throughout the scene, and almost every time the switch like breaks off when he tries it like too many times. So it's almost like a performance like issue joke where it's like, oh, nothing's working. And even the fact that, because he talks to her a little bit about this Durant, about Earth, and eventually he says something, "There is one thing I want from you in return." And she immediately gets a smile on her face and goes, "Oh, I think I know what it is." And she starts taking off her clothes, and he's like, No. I want to do it the Earth way. I've been waiting to try one of these pills. And she's like, no, I don't want to change your traditions. Let's do it your way. Like, she is desperate for just regular sex. And he's like, no. Yeah. So we get this scene where they both take this pill, they put the hand in, touching each other. And the joke is that smoke comes from their hands and their hair starts to stand up. But it does this thing where she kind of does that first and then kind of like, sort of like takes her hand away and stops really getting into it. But then she realizes he's still doing it, so she's like, "Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have done that," and puts her hand back.
Yeah, no, some other guy walks in, someone else in the Resistance, and like he just has to stand there and wait until they're done. And like you said, she separates first. They do a hair curling thing for her, like her hair gets all curled up. But then when they join back in, it's an uncomfortable amount of time, but like comedically uncomfortable, where you're left sitting there watching this guy just like get more into it. Also, there's music playing pretty much throughout the sequence, but it completely dies off when they do the hand touching scene, and all you get are these little like thumping noises as their like thighs and like hips start to just like jiggle a little bit, and they're just staring so blankly and so dead-faced at each other. I got such a kick out of this scene. I thought it was great. Also, the name of the man who is doing all this is Dildano, and that's just the funniest name in this whole goddamn movie.
I'm glad you enjoyed it,
soulless.
David.
You're soulless.
I'm soulless because I didn't enjoy Dildano?
Dildano, and how just absolutely incompetent he was the whole way through. There was a bit in there where they're like, okay, so we've got this plan. We're going to go attack the queen. We got all this stuff. And he explains how she's in her dream chamber, which is locked from the inside. She is the only key, but they have a copy of the key. And for some godforsaken reason, the key is invisible, and so they tie it around her neck, but like you can't see anything there. But I love when she makes the point of like, if you have the key and you have this resistance and all this other stuff, why haven't you taken care of the queen? And like, for a moment, it seems like the actor like forgot his lines. I know it's intentional. I know that they ran with it here for the sake of the comedic bit, but like, there's a moment where he's like, why did I, oh, right. Yes, it's because we didn't have enough forces before today, and that's why we're doing this now. That's totally why it is. And I just got such a kick out of this character. I really enjoyed his performance here comparatively.
Okay. I'm glad you had a good time. I am. I genuinely am. I think for me though, like his like non-committal answer to like why haven't you already tried to overthrow it just kind of like punctuates how little the plot matters. It's like, well, just cause. Yeah, but that's because at this point it's leaning into it. Like before it was leaning into it as well, but like this is where it's leaning in, and it's really also hitting other comedic bits. I feel like this guy really got the timing of it all down, where I felt like it was really just working for me. So,
and then,
I want to summarize here, right? So she crash lands on the first planet, gets kidnapped and needs to be saved. She crash lands and gets knocked out on the second planet and gets saved by the blind angel. She gets up to the city, immediately gets almost assaulted by men and gets saved by Emperor Lady. She is about to be killed after she's arrested and gets saved by this resistance. She then is sent out with this mission to go to the dream chamber where the great empress, the tyrant, is going to be sleeping, and you can get in there with this second invisible key. And she immediately gets caught. The concierge finds her immediately. Like, she sits down to talk to some of the other girls who are like all getting high and says, hey, where's this chamber thing? And immediately this guy just finds her. And he takes her to a sex torture device. The excessive, he called it, excessive, if I say it correctly. And it's basically this thing that she sits in, her head's sticking out, and it's just a thing to give her pleasure, and she says, oh, this is quite pleasant. And he's like, yes, but it's going to sex you to death. However, the joke of this scene is that Barbarella is such a sex machine that the machine gets destroyed instead because the machine couldn't keep up with her just, like, magical vagina. It's like, it couldn't do it. It couldn't do it, so it starts bursting into flames, and the concierge gets so mad and upset that he admits that he's Durant and reveals that he wants to overthrow the tyrant himself and take this city and then go back and conquer Earth. He wants to do all this stuff, and when Barbarella reveals she's got the invisible key, he's like, aha, we'll go up to our dream chamber together, and that sets up the final bit of the movie.
Had you got nothing out of that scene? None of that was funny to you?
Not really, no.
Good God, man. Like, I maybe it's just because, again, at this point, it was starting to work for me. I liked the way that the timing was really playing off. I think this is where Jane Fonda's comedic bits were really working as well, because Durant is going through this long monologue of saying, like, this is why I plan on doing this to Earth and all that, but because she was stripped naked in this machine, she's just like interrupting his speech and his monologue for like, could you pass me my boots, could you hand me that, and until she gets like a full-fledged costume, and he just does it without thinking. Like, none of that's working at all.
No, really. I mean, I think maybe part of the problem with the comedy of this is so much of it's based around this idea of she doesn't know much about sex, but then immediately loves it and just wants more of it. Like, obviously, I think there's a version of that can be, like, take Poor Things, right? A recent-ish movie that's about kind of a Frankenstein-like creation that doesn't really know what sex is and then discovers it and then loves it, and it's a whole exploration of how she explores sexuality. And it's a very funny movie, but it's also constantly has something to say, and it's just, exploring this idea of her independence as a sexual being and what she gets out of it and the others' attitudes towards how she likes it and all the rest of it. This movie to me feels like a man wrote this. Maybe he wrote the comic, maybe he wrote the movie, and it's all about just this fantasy of the most gorgeous woman who just wants sex, and it's all just based around that male gaze. It feels very thin to me, and I just don't get anything out of it.
I get what you're saying. I see that viewpoint, but I feel like because it is leaning into it so hard, I feel like it kind of surpasses that in a little ways. Like, I get what you're saying, that like a lot of this for the male gaze and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, that is absolutely how it can be marketed. That is absolutely how they were probably selling this, is like, look, boobs and stuff. But I think they were leaning so hard into how sexed up everything is that it comes back around to being like a parody of that sort of stuff rather than playing it straight.
I need to be more of a parody. I need to go further. I need to be poking fun at like the tropes of like a sex comedy at that point or something. I don't know. Like I never felt like it subverted anything where it felt like she was coming out on top because she had the power. Like, I mean, yeah, she wants to have the sex and that's fine, but it felt like it was just kind of I don't know. Like I didn't feel like it was coming from a place where it was trying to like critique anything, which is what comedy poking fun at something should be doing.
I hear what you're saying, but I do think there are times of that. For instance, you were saying how it just keeps on repeating itself of her ending up in a place and having to be saved and whatnot. I think that that's a common critique, a common problem with those sort of sex comedies, and especially like, porny sort of plots like that. And so doing it over and over and over again and immediately it being resolved just to do it again. The sort of thing where she's constantly being knocked out and she keeps on waking up in these places. The fact that she's making so many costume changes and all of them are 100% stripperific and just showing off her body like that. It feels like it does it so frequently that that's what it's poking fun at. It's no other movie would be doing this as much as it was doing. And on top of that, by the time you get to the stuff where every single character is talking about having sex with Barbarella specifically, it's not like, oh, I want to have sex with Pygar or whatever when it comes to the Tyrant. It's specifically framing it through the device of Barbarella. I feel like that's where it's turning it up to the max. And maybe some of it's been lost because things have, in the meantime, gotten so turned up to 110% already, just in its own thing, where some of these tropes seem quaint by comparison. But I think for the time, it's something where it was playing a bit more heavily on that.
Yeah, I just, I didn't get any kind of layers to this. It felt kind of superficial to me and just an excuse to do what they're doing. And it's fine if, like, okay, you're saying they're parodying, like, with all that repetition of her needing to be saved and all the outfit changes, but it never builds to something. It never builds to, like, a subversion at the end or anything like that, Like, it's never like... if you really want to do something with it, you have her, ultimately save it. But hell, the end of this movie, so concierge / Durant takes her to the chamber, right? The dream chamber where the tyrant lives, or sleeps, I should say. And they get in with the invisible key. He runs in immediately, grabs the main invisible key and traps her inside and says, "You're trapped in there with the tyrant. You'll never get out because I've got both keys. I'm going to go be coronated as king of the city and start my whole empire, blah, 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 blah." Yep. And whilst they're in here, the evil tyrant sort of like does something to like basically get the liquid, was it the mammoth?
The Mathmos.
Mathmos. Right? To get that going. And effectively like destroys the entire city. The liquid rises up and consumes everything. Because the bad guy is going to turn on his weapon, this big phaser, which I almost forgot existed by this point in the movie because it hadn't been mentioned in like over an hour. But he's going to turn on his big like fancy weapon that he made, and the evil tyrant does this. However, Barbarella has kept being saved throughout this entire movie by various people. The planet itself decides to save her at the end, because she's a good person and not evil like everyone else in the city, it forms a protective bubble around her in this chamber so that she's okay, and the tyrant actually survives because she's with Barbarella. That's how this movie ends. So even the actual goddamn MacGuffin planet saves her at the very end.
I appreciate that, not from like the plotting perspective, but just the reaction that she gives, where the tyrant explains that she's like, "Oh, it seems that the planet itself did not find you evil enough to consume, so it protected you and put you in a bubble instead." And her only reaction is, "Oh, well, that's nice." And then it just continues on to see it. Like, that's such a non sequitur of like, "Yeah, okay, cool."
Yeah, I just... Which begs the question, like, does it actually like evil? Or, because if it's protecting someone who's good, then it kind of suggests that it also could, you know, embrace a good society living near it as well, potentially.
Well, it sounds to me like it manages to process evil into energy, and I'm sure it needs that for itself as well. So if there's no evil around, then it wouldn't be able to live, period. But in terms of would it be able to survive within a good place nearby, I'm sure, as long as there were just something to give it energy, some level of evil existing nearby. It wouldn't care if there was good around it.
Yeah, maybe it could easily also just consume love. Maybe it can do either end. Maybe. And I mean, I don't know, just theorizing.
What is that, Monsters Inc.? Where it's like, oh, it's got to be screams. Nah, actually, it's laughter.
Yeah, laughter can work just as well, yeah. So the movie ends with Pygar showing up and, flying her off back to her ship, which has been fixed by the Doctor back in the labyrinth, and takes the tyrant as well. And once they're in the air, Barbarella says to Pygar, "Hey, why did you save this evil bitch? Well, why did you do that?" And after everything she's done to you, because, she crucified you, she tried to assault you, all these things. And he just goes, "An angel does not remember." And like, wait, so you don't remember any of that? You just have amnesia? Okay.
Yeah. And then it plays out to the ending song, which is literally "An Angel is Love," playing on that earlier line before, as a psychedelic background goes on behind them.
Yep. As there's just them awkwardly on wires flying in front of a screen, which, by the way, every time they did this effect, there was like really bad banding on like their screen that they were using. You can see like strips in the screen, so it was always very clear that they were projecting onto a screen. And even actually some of the backdrops on like their sets for the planets, you could see creases in the backdrop, which, normally you don't see that in a movie. So it's like, that's really, they spent a decent amount of money on the sets, but also there's these just little things that make it feel cheap as well at the same time. So I don't know. But that's it. That's the movie.
Record time. Yeah. No, I look, I really don't have much more to add because everything I would be saying is literally just, and then there was this joke, and then like 3 seconds of silence, and then you saying, "Yep." So just know that there are jokes in there that I appreciate. I think that they did a decent job with some of the humor of the movie, and this was a vote winner. Going into it, I wasn't sure if this was a vote winner solely because people have just heard about Barbarella and just wanted to see our reaction on it. But I think, having now watched it, I think there might be people who actually enjoy Barbarella and wanted to see what we thought about it.
I suspect there is, yeah. I suspect
I'm happy to say I think I'm one of them.
Yeah, I suspect there's people who like this, and Flash Gordon, and what was that awful movie we did that was like mostly fantasy with a little bit of sci-fi?
It started with something like that. Hold on. Krull, that's it.
That's the one. Throw that into the mix as well. So no, the monster movies of the 50s I can often enjoy quite a bit and get something out of, even though they're quite dated in a lot of ways. This did very little for me. I'm sorry to say. David, what are you rating Barbarella out of 10?
Oh boy. 6. I think it's a 6. I would not recommend this movie to people in the sense of like just a general flat, you should see this one. But I think there's a particular type of person who would get a lot out of this.
Perverts.
Yes, perverts especially, they definitely would. But this kind of cheesy aspect to it, the sort of thing where, your Flash Gordon sort of stuff, where it's they are capable. It feels like they're capable of making a stronger movie, but they are purposely leaning on this idea that it is as cheap and as cheesy as it is for the sake of a comedic angle to it. And maybe you get something out of that. Maybe you are just soulless like Pete, but I think that there is something there that some people are going to enjoy.
Soulless. Yeah, this is at best a 4 out of 10 for me. I was painfully bored watching this. I did not care about anything that was going on. I wasn't really laughing at anything. I was just, I actually bought this on sale because it was on sale just after it won the vote, and I thought, oh, I'll buy it. That'll be nice in case I like it. I'll have it in the collection. Mistakes were made.
Can you sell iTunes? Can you put that up for sale somewhere?
I don't believe so. I think I can delete it from my library if I want to out of spite, but I can't sell it to someone else now, unfortunately.
Darn.
Who knows? Maybe I'll need it for something someday.
I mean, you're going to need it at the very least for editing this video, putting clips at the beginning, so there's that.
But that's yeah, there you go. There's the thoughts on Barbarella. Nothing more to add. This was a thoroughly uninteresting movie to me, and I cannot wait to get to more interesting stuff. David's got his homework movie, of course, in just a minute's time. We'll talk about that. Next week on the show, because last week, because there was 2 collector's cuts last week, this is the first week where going forward there'll be an ace every single week, as well as a collector's cut every single week. Sometimes they may swap days on a rare occasion, but otherwise one every week. And next week on the show, hopefully it's a good movie. Oh no, wait, it's the RoboCop remake. Never mind.
Yay. Who put this schedule together?
Hey, at the very least though, I'll be passionate about some of that, I expect. So that's something. I mean, anger's a passion. I wasn't even angry about Barbarella. I was just uninterested.
If I want everybody who's watching this a week after the fact, check the runtime on the RoboCop remake review and see if it is more than twice the length of this.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if it'll go that long, but we'll find out. Of course, you can support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Help keep it coming. Get some bonus goodies like the extra ratings that we do for each episode called the Ratings Rundown, where we rate video, audio, script, acting, all that kind of thing. Sexual Tension Award, of course, is given out on that. Plus, you get extra reels every month. It's Sean, me, and David do monthly, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. There's even a free episode of that going out this week on the channel. So it's a bonus extra one. So look out for that at the weekend instead of Collector's Cut. But as per usual, David ends the show with going back and reviewing one of the movies that we did on Ace before he joined the show, so he can catch up. And he implied earlier that he wasn't thrilled with his pick. So, David, why don't you reveal what you watched for this week?
So, I loaded up Barbarella's IMDb page just to see where it was streaming, and it was underneath the You May Also Like section, or Suggested For You section. And
Schindler's List.
Was... Yes, absolutely. On the Sci-Fi Show. No, it was The Omega Man. Charlton Heston, 1972. Kind of like a similar vibe to this one in a lot of ways. Not in the sex comedy aspect of it, but just in that it felt a lot goofier than I was expecting.
Well,
like,
sure.
I went into that movie
and for the record,
it
it's not just that it's not similar in a sex comedy kind of way. It's not a sex comedy at all, just to be clear. It's
right.
It's a post-apocalyptic. I mean, they're technically vampires, but it's definitely more of a sci-fi with the way it's handled.
Yeah, and that's the bit that got me. So obviously, I had seen the Will Smith I Am Legend prior to this. I knew that the two were related. I knew it was based off the same sort of project. And I guess that's kind of the best comparison I can make is watching The Omega Man and comparing it to I Am Legend feels kind of like watching Adam West Batman and comparing it to Robert Pattinson Batman. It's entirely different beasts. It is an entirely different vibe and feel that I feel like it was going for here. And I think what kind of set me down about this movie is that, first off, the second act, once we establish the gist of his world, the second act is so unbearably slow. There is nothing happening for a great long period there. But ignoring that, what gets me is that this movie feels like it's trying to end on a very poignant and meaningful note. It feels like this entire movie is trying to set up this very poignant and meaningful message. And I just don't get it. I just don't feel like I understand the point they're making here is. Part of it is like, oh, the survival of the human race is important. And some of it's like an anti-technology slant. Some of it's environmental slant to it of like, we have to go somewhere where humanity hasn't been. But like, it feels so scattershot and so just, the future kind of sucks in a vague general way. And humanity needs to correct itself, that it almost feels like it says nothing by the end of it, which kind of disappointed me more than even something like the original ending of like the Will Smith version, which is just kind of this action hero whatever ending. Like this one feels like it's so broadly saying everything that it's saying nothing by the end of it.
I mean, I definitely like that more than Barbarella, even though I didn't love it. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Are you aware that this isn't even the first version of the story that you're talking about?
Yes, I am, but I did want something that was kind of in the same wheelhouse. I know that there was one earlier to this, so
yeah, Vincent Price.
I will go back and do that one.
First one.
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, it's been a while since we did it on the show, so I don't remember it too well specifically, especially since there's two other versions that are kind of mixed up with it in my brain. But I think there's elements of both the 70s one, which is Omega Man, and Last Man on Earth, which is the 60s one with Vincent Price. There's elements to both of those that I think are decent or all right. I really don't like I Am Legend. I think that movie is really rough, especially the back third of it. I think it just completely falls apart.
No, I think once you get into this concept that there is this other group and like, there's, in this it's vampires, and I Am Legend it's whatever the hell they call them. Once you get into that stuff, that is kind of what makes the story unique in its own way. I will say I Am Legend, I think, did a better job of establishing the post-apocalyptic feel. This one felt more like, especially because the vampires are still able to speak and they still are very human-like in like so many ways. It felt more to me like this was a guy who was basically go around like killing COVID victims at the height of the pandemic. Like it didn't feel like he was fighting monsters. It felt like it was just sick people. Okay,
so I just want to give a bit of a spoiler warning here for the story that we're talking about, because I want to say something about the ending. I'm pretty sure Omega Man, sorry to say, I think Omega Man is the one that gets the closest to actually making the point that the original story wanted to make by the end. I don't think I Am Legend does that, because it actively changes the ending and ruins it. So the point of the story at the end is that basically he has become the boogeyman to these, like, this new race that have formed out of this infection, whether you want to call them vampires, zombies, mutants, whatever. And Omega Man is the only one that felt like it was even trying to touch on that. Like, these people are actually just another race that should be left alone, and he's just assuming that he should be killing them. So I at least appreciate that in Omega Man versus the others.
I will say I consider the definitive version of I Am Legend the one that has the alternative ending, which is exactly what you're saying there. It does touch on that specifically, so I consider that to be the definitive. But when it comes down to this one, they do touch on that, they do get there, but it happens, in my opinion, somewhere at like the midpoint of the movie, even beginning of second act, honestly, where they've captured him at some point. And I don't know, it just feels like the rest of the movie is just kind of spinning its wheels on this thing of like, oh, we might be able to make a cure, and oh, we might be able to do this and that and restart humanity over in that direction. And once you're talking about restarting humanity in a different place, you're less talking about the boogeyman and more talking about just leaving and going to do your own thing. So I don't know, it felt a bit too scattershot for me. I just didn't get that much out of it.
I mean, I don't disagree, because it's not like I give it a super high rating, but I do think it's better than I Am Legend. If I'm like, I think I Am Legend has a better first half, but I think once you start seeing more of the enemies in I Am Legend, it falls apart, because it's just these crappy CG monsters, right? And I think the entire last act of I Am Legend, I think, just sucks.
I specifically remember the first act and the alternate ending. It's just been so long since I've seen the rest of it. So I'll get back to that event. Have you done that for the show? I assume you have.
I think we did. I don't remember if I'm honest. You have to check.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think we did.
If so, I'll do it eventually. But no, the other part that I had a little issue with is that, much like Barbarella, there is this jaunty sort of like 60s musical score to it, and that just totally takes me out of the post-apocalyptic mood. Absolutely. So collectively, just to wrap it up, I think I'm gonna say it's gonna get a 6, the same as Barbarella here, but for vastly different reasons. I think this one had a bit higher in terms of like it's trying to say something, acting potential, stuff like that. I just didn't like what it was doing as much.
I don't remember what I may have gone a little bit higher. I may have been a 6.5 or a 7. I don't remember.
You listed as a 6 on here. So.
6? Fair enough. Okay. Well, I landed in the same number then. Fair enough. I mean, I've forgotten a lot of it at this point, so I'm going on vague memory, but I still got more passionate for that conversation than I did for the entirety of Barbarella. So that has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment, everyone. We'll be back next week with the RoboCop remake. We did the original 3 fairly close together, but the remake kept getting pushed back because it wasn't that important, but we're finally getting to it. Part of this not taking a week off every month anymore means that we can get to things like the RoboCop remake. So
whoa,
hooray. But that's the show. Thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe. Thanks to everyone who already supports the show via Patreon or YouTube membership. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.